Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 30 of the Shamanwood podcast. This is Out of the Gloom. We again have a very special episode to kick off 2026. This is the second time that we'll actually have a third man and a fourth man on the show. And of course, the packs are what make this show what it is. So we'll welcome those men in a moment here. First, just as a reminder, of what we're doing here. We're talking about F3 and all the elements that surround this organization. F3, of course, stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. As always, every week, please join me in welcoming my partner in crime. This is Dog House.
Howdy.
And today, as I mentioned, we have two men joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina. Doghouse met these gentlemen in his trip this late fall, early winter. We have John Frey, who is known as Fry Daddy, and Chris Budnick, who is Big Papi. Men, I'll open it up to you first. How's your weekend been so far, and how you doing in general down there?
Uh, this Big Poppy, Puddles Dog House, thanks so much for having Fry Daddy and I on. Weekend's going well. I'm in long-term recovery from addiction and spent a day visiting another member in recovery who's been dealing with some health issues and kind of homebound right now. So weekend started with some service to another person.
Excellent. It's a great way to start the weekend. How about you, Fry Daddy?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Everything's going well here. Weekend's just typical. I've got a 4-year-old that had a basketball game this morning, and before that, went out and put some miles in with a couple F3 guys. Non-official post, just kind of a typical long run on Saturday this morning. So that's how things have started so far.
We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, but just embarrass us all by telling us what a typical long run is off the books for Fry Daddy.
Well, I do a pretty standard 20 miles
Of
on
course.
Saturday or Sunday morning, and then probably a 10 or so tomorrow morning, something like that.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's just incredible work. Good for you. Yeah. Doghouse, what have you been up to? I just saw you
I get
yesterday,
tired.
but
Yeah, I get tired driving 20 miles. Yeah, skipped the workout this morning. Kind of a lazy weekend, getting a little bit of recovery. Basketball's kicking in for me, so little aches and pains are coming back this week. But like I said before we got on, my stepson Booger was just here, so I was catching up with him. He's 20, so he's kind of starting his journey. So he moved out recently, and I found out he got accepted to Indiana State. So maybe he'll be
nice.
going there next year. So yeah, good to catch up with him, and definitely excited for the podcast today.
Good, good. Well, as we always do, let's get started by jumping into the core principles, mission, and credo. Doghouse, would you take us away?
Gladly. So at F3, we have 5 core principles. We are: one, open to all men; two, free of charge; three, held outside, rain, shine, heat, or cold; four, peer led in rotating fashion; and five, we always end in a circle of trust. We have a credo: to leave no man behind, but leave no man where you find him. And finally, we have a mission statement: to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups of men for the invigoration of male community leadership.
Hi. All right. We like to kick this podcast into gear by looking back over the last week or so and calling out one workout that stood out to each of you. I'll go quickly just give you a sense of how this works. I've actually been sick since Christmas. Christmas Eve, my 5-year-old got the flu, and so we celebrated at home. Didn't really do much over the holiday break. I got the flu like a couple days later, a week later. So I just got back out to running this last week. So I only posted once this last week. I went to a run club here, actually in the Plainfield region at the Olympiad. So shout out to those guys. I got to do an EC run with Spit Valve and got to do a regular 3.5 mile run with Spikehorn. So we ran through the neighborhoods there. I got 6.5 miles in total, but felt really good to get back out. I've been sick for so long and really beat myself up for not getting out there and falling behind in my mileage goals. So that was my personal workout of the week. Doug House, why don't you follow, and then we'll go to the North Carolina guys.
Yeah, a light week for me as well. No good excuse, but sometimes you just need light weeks. So for me, it was Tuesday. Marinero was on cue at Three Rivers for his second cue. So he's one of our younger packs. He's 18. He's been stepping up, just a natural when it comes to leading. And for his second cue, he had a Dora, basically partner Dora. The reps were pretty high. He had 400 reps. I think we only got to 3 or 4 sets, but sneaky on the distance on the miles, right? So I think we got 2.5, which for us kind of more standard non-pros on a string, that's a pretty good. 2.5 is pretty good for us for what we were doing for the Dora. So, um, yeah, shout out to Marinera. He continues to step up and lead, and he had a great workout on Tuesday at Three Rivers.
So, all right, Friday, let's have you go next. So, what was your favorite workout of the last week or so?
Yeah, it was a lighter week for me too, just because of some work obligations early in the morning. But favorite workout was probably Monday morning, which is a workout called Stair City here in Raleigh. It's a vertical workout where it's kind of a challenge to see how much vertical gain you can get. It's done in stairwells up at a place called North Hills here in North Raleigh. So it's one of my favorite sites. It's kind of a bruiser. It's an hour and 15-minute workout Monday morning at 5. So that's typically my favorite one of the week.
It's a good way to start the week. What about you, Big Poppy?
I'm like you, have been recovering from a couple of back-to-back things, norovirus, and then chills and fever this week. So my goal today is simply just get out and take a short ruck as a way of trying to get back into some physical activity.
Yeah, it's mentally tough to be gone for an extended period of time, and I know 6 days for me felt like a month. I felt like I hadn't been doing anything in a month, and even today, just really beat myself up and try to mentally move through that process to get to the other side. All right, let's turn the page to the second F focus, which is our PAX spotlight. As I said, we've got two men on the call today from North Carolina who we want to get to know a little bit better, not only about you as individuals, but about your region too and what's going on down there in North Carolina. I think it's, as I said in the pre-call, really inspiring when we see what's possible by learning more about the other regions in the country. So I'll let Doghouse get started. I know we've got a couple of questions, general questions that we ask each of you, and then we'll get into a larger topic from there.
Yeah, for sure. So starting right off the top, I'll go with Big Poppy first. We'll go alphabetical order, to be politically correct. When and how did you find F3?
Yeah, I'm hoping not too long-winded on this, but it's important for me to share that there was an F3 member named Duff who had served as chair of the board of directors for the nonprofit that I work at. That's called Healing Transitions. I've been with the organization for over 25 years. Thursday the 15th marked 25 years of actual operations. Right. And he was board chair up and through 2013. And he was board chair during kind of a divisive time with my boss and so forth. And my thought would have been, if I was in his shoes, as soon as my volunteer service was done, I would have walked away and never looked back at this nonprofit. But he, in his heart, cared about the people. And as he got introduced to F3 in 2014, he came to me and said, I'd like to see about starting a workout at Healing Transitions. We were known as the Healing Place of Wake County then. And so my introduction to F3 was through Duff. He invited me to a workout that was at Pullen Park on a Saturday morning. And then we worked on trying to figure out the right time, right day to do a workout at our men's campus. And that was my introduction to it. And again, like, just this tremendous amount of respect for this man who, if I was in his shoes, would have just totally been like, F this nonprofit. They're a mess. None of this has been fun. And he has just been so generous of his spirit, his heart, his actions.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Real quick, well, it's a perfect segue for me. Let's give another shout out as we did last week. Healing-Transitions F3.org is the website. If anybody out there is listening would like to reach out to them, make a donation, make a contribution, help in any way they can, that's their website. Yeah, and Big Poppy, right after you took me on that tour, when we walked through Dick's Park, which, by the way, Dick's Park is probably the nicest park I've ever been in. A beautiful park. Um, as soon as I got to the car, I called Puddles and told him, like, I was so moved by what you guys are doing with F3 and how you're using it as an outlet to help men in recovery. I had to call Puddles right away and tell him, like, selfishly how moved I was with what you guys are doing. And then secondly, I guess a little more selfishly, is that we had to get you on the pod and tell your story. So definitely thank you for coming out. There is a second part to this question. I know you guys don't track it as closely down there as we do here, but I'll ask regardless. Do you know what your post count is today?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, I know we're pretty we're trackers up here. But yeah, I know one of the things I kind of learned from some of the North Carolina guys is it's not really tracked so much. So
And
cool.
that's my favorite answer to date, because I have no
I don't
idea. It just doesn't matter. Because it matters in the most surface level, like obnoxious reasons up here. But we do celebrate it. I think we're still a young region. So
Yeah.
a guy just this last week reached 1,000 posts, and that was a big deal for us. That was the first guy in our region to hit 1,000 first or second to reach 1,000 posts, and it's sort of a milestone for all of us. I think to see, we haven't been doing this for 10 years, so it's certainly still new for us to see that.
Yeah, as far as F3 goes, we're still young and wide-eyed, and the world is our oyster, right? Young and optimistic. Cool. So on that, Ruck, Big Poppy, one of the things we talked about was Oakwood 24 that Fry Daddy has brought up and championed within the area. So let me switch over to Fry Daddy then. How did you get involved with F3?
Yeah, so I was actually on August 19th, 2016, I had been kind of beat down by alcoholism and drug abuse and you name it, I had an issue with it. I made the decision that day to do something about it, and that's when I got dropped off at Healing Transitions. Um, and it's been about a week in the hospital shortly after I got dropped off there for other reasons. But anyways, on August 26th, that next Friday, I was just standing around in the courtyard out there before this next class, and some guys grabbed me and said, "Hey, we're going to do this workout over here. 30 minutes. Would you like to join us?" type of thing. And that was the workout at Healing Transitions called the Arena. Um, so they grabbed me that day, and it's been kind of a part of my life, heavily weekly for the last 9 years and some change.
Were
Awesome.
you
Well,
working out a
congratulations.
lot before that, or was that your first?
No,
Obviously, you're
I
doing a
would
lot
say
of extra stuff.
I was in really bad shape when I got there. You know, that week that I talked about that I came back that next Friday, I was hospitalized for alcohol withdrawal, seizures, things like that. So the last 2 or 3 years before I got there were pretty rough. But I was not in good physical shape at all. No.
Yeah. Well, it's great
Yeah.
to see how
So
far you've come.
yeah, definitely. Congratulations on your sobriety. So I want to start there. So I'll ask the same question. I think I'll get the same answer, but do you know your post count either at this point?
No, I don't. I know the first probably 5 years I was a stickler for 6 days a week. Right now I probably average 4 or 5, so I'd say 4 or 5 a week for the last 9.5 years, something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to get my calculator out, but I'm sure you got a couple thousand for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, I'll stick with you, Fry Daddy, then. And for my next question, how did you get your F3 name?
Yeah, this is kind of a weird one, and it's not a great story, but there's a guy named Vector Victor that I knew from college, and he was actually the Q. I hadn't seen him in years until I was at Healing Transitions, but that Friday on my first post, he was the Q.
Okay.
And we had had some interaction back in college at Appalachian State, and
Hmm.
for some reason, I think I'd been frying up some chicken wings or something that weekend, and we had this wrestling match, and he knew my last name was Fry, so somehow I ended up with Fry Daddy. Things were still a little blurry back then in August 2016, but that's how I got it.
Awesome. So, Big Poppy, you've got an interesting name. I could take a guess, but I'd love to hear your story, how you got your F3 name, please.
Probably not because he's a huge Red Sox fan, I would guess.
Listen, I lucked out. I mean, I grew up in Rhode Island, grew up with
Wow.
watching Carl Yastrzemski since 1996 or so, with the exception of 1 year. I've been playing wood bat baseball in a men's league. I'm in a 50 and over league now, as well as a 32 and over league. So play baseball, a little over 6 feet tall. Red Sox fan, and they gave me a Big Poppy, and I've not forgotten it.
That's awesome. Oh, now, if you were in our region and you told us you were a
Yeah.
Red Sox fan, we would have named you after a Yankee for sure.
100%.
In fact, we have a guy, Cutler, who is a Green Bay fan, but I was, he got the name Cutler, and Mahomes, who was a Broncos fan. So we definitely go out on those here. That's funny.
Yeah.
I'll stick with you then, Poppy. Friday, he kind of shared his posting cadence with us, so I'll ask you, what is your typical posting cadence throughout the week?
It's usually just the arena. So
Okay.
it's a great time for me to connect with the participants. One of the things about healing transitions is it's kind of a reduced hierarchy where there's a shared sense of kind of equality in ownership for the program and the model. And like being out there just with the guys as one of the guys really kind of fits with our philosophy and our culture. And so it's been a great way for me to be visible and connected. I started as the director of programs and had a ton of day-to-day participant involvement. And over the last almost 10 years as executive director, my responsibilities have shifted to so many external things in terms of our relationships in the community and so forth. So I've lost some of that day-to-day contact that I had previously had early in my career with healing transitions. And this has just been a great way to stay connected.
Awesome. All right, Puddles, you're part of the show.
So, Poppy, I was hoping you could continue on that path. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about healing transitions and F3 and the way that's the two have impacted each other. And I'm sure, Friday, you can build on this conversation from there. But I think it's from the outside looking in, it feels like it must be such a privilege to have a way to impact men's lives in such a deep way. Like here, as I mentioned, in our region, we're still looking for that. We have a lot of need in our communities. We have a lot of food banks. We have a lot of residents who are in need. But we're still looking for the one way we can have the deepest driving impact. And I think your model, your partnership, and certainly what you're doing in healing transitions is a good way to think about what's possible. And that's again why Dog House was so moved to call me right away when he met you guys. So I'd love to hear how that has had a dual benefit for healing transitions participants and for the men of F3 as well. So I'll open the floor to you and let you talk about it from your perspective, and then Friday, you can jump in as well wherever you feel like it.
That's a really important question, and I appreciate you providing time for it. So the first way, which may not seem like the most sensible way to answer the question, is with respect for what it does for the participants themselves. Like I could talk about this from a fundraising perspective about how much money has come in because of Oakwood 24, how much support has come in from F3 members financially, but that's incredibly important. But the thing that I experienced and watched is that the people that end up at healing transitions, they are sometimes people that have never had anything. There are sometimes people that have had and lost and kind of worked their way down, but they've ended up homeless. They've got, pretty significant problems. They're not folks that are like, got a lot of social support. They've burned a lot of bridges. When folks first come to us, one of their first kind of questions is, can I get into recovery? Can I escape this thing has had a grip on me, right? And the kind of shame or guilt, despair, bewilderment that kind of accompanies that bottom. People start to overcome that when they're around their peers at Healing Transition. So with us being a peer-based program, 75% of our staff are alumni. The focus on alumni coming back to visit, the fact that you're interacting with other people who are early in recovery, in their first year of recovery or so, you start as a participant to start to feel accepted, and you start to see some hope for yourself. But there's a second obstacle, or the second hurdle. What next? Can I rebuild a life? Who's going to hire me? How do I explain this gap in my employment? How do I explain this criminal record? Will my family ever, trust me again? What the F3 guys, as well as other folks that, the faith community and so forth, what they do when they come in and spend time with the men is show them that there are people out there in the larger society that will welcome them back, embrace them, and let them realize that they can be equal citizens in their community, right? So emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, will I be accepted? Well, and they get that. They get that through those interactions in that community. And that to me is, I think, one of the most powerful things that what I say to any group that I speak to that the larger recovery can do is believe in these second chances, believe that these folks are not only deserving of second chances, but they have the ability to make our community better. And you can help with that by welcoming them, embracing them, and supporting that second chance. So that's always kind of the first thing that I think about. I mentioned that there's a lot of, financial support of the F3 community to nonprofits, and we're a nonprofit that has been a recipient of that generosity of the F3 community. The F3 community intersects with a lot of our participants in various ways. Some F3 members are attorneys. I've had countless stories of F3 members running into a participant in court, stepping in, helping them out, and so forth. On the other side, I can only say this based on what I've heard from F3 members who are not like in a recovery from addiction, but come and participate, who sometimes may not have been shoulder to shoulder with folks who have found themselves in this space in their life, is it reduces the sense of separation. And so at the end of the day, there is less distance between the F3 member that drives up, in a nice SUV, and the F3 member at Healing Transitions who's back after his third relapse and has a pending court case. They see each other more similar than different. And that is a really powerful healing type of outcome from spending time together, doing something hard.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of environments in which that is the case. I think you can probably relate to this a bit more as an athlete, somebody who plays baseball. Once you're on the field, all the other factors are somewhat removed. It's just down to what you're physically able to do in that moment. You probably, as an adult who's playing baseball at your age, you're probably seeing men in different points of their career, but they all have this shared thing in common. I imagine that's similar, as I've seen it in the Gloom too. We have men of every socioeconomic range, probably smaller range than some regions do. But certainly when you're in the Gloom struggling together, whether it's working through the cold, working through the rain, or just your body's physical limits, I think reduces the humanity down to its base layer. Where it's like, this is what we all share. This is what we're all struggling against at some point. And that is, I think, as much as all the other things you mentioned about the charitable aspects of F3, I think just the physical struggling together, that base level of human nature is what brings all men together and levels the playing field in the Gloom. I think that's an interesting take on that. Friday, I was hoping you could hop in here with a bit more familiarity from a different perspective and talk a little bit about your experience of F3 and what you've taken that experience and built with things like the Oakwood 24.
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe it is it's all come full circle for me, from starting that first day at Healing Transitions, all the way up to 9 years later, where I've been able to help with expansion across the country. And I just got done serving 3 years as Nantan and F3 Raleigh, and um, been able to serve F3 and have leadership positions and give back and all that kind of stuff. Um, so it's just been completely full circle for me and just fantastic. But going back to the first day that I was there, it's kind of like when you start 12-step recovery and you get into a meeting and you see people have been sober for a while and are happy. And you look at them, and you're like, I don't know what it is, but I see something that I want in that person. And it was the same way at F3 that day. I don't know, you guys don't know Vector Victor, but if you know him, um, he's just a fantastic guy. And all the other guys that were there that day, when I was done that first COT, I could see in those guys, and I was like, my life was pretty miserable at that point, but they had something that I wanted. And just the way they explain themselves, that, they're just because they don't have an alcohol addiction or something like that, they admitted that they were all flawed men, and that everybody's just a couple bad decisions from being right where anybody else is in their life. And just being transparent, and having men share with you like that. So it was just really special to me. And then, those guys are so open, and they're just like, you can get as involved in this if you want to. If you want to hop on this train, like we will pull you back up, and help you in any way we can. It's just come full circle from the first jobs I had to all the friends I have today. Um, it's just pretty wild between the 12-step recovery and AA kind of coupled together, and neither one of them takes the place of the other one. I just want to mention that for anybody that's listening, but it's just incredible what it's done for me. So just grateful that somebody grabbed me that day, and I was open and willing enough to take that step and get involved.
I think that's an important part that we don't talk enough about. I think in the gloom, I've heard a number of men say F3 found me when I needed to be found. It wasn't necessarily that, maybe another time in my life I wouldn't have been ready for it or I wouldn't have appreciated that gift. And I imagine whether it's the the program at Healing Transitions or F3 itself is probably right time, right place for you in some capacity, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you look back at it, it's not coincidence. I don't know how all this stuff evolved into being at the exact time. If Vector Victor hadn't been there that day, I don't know that I ever would have gotten involved with F3. It was his familiar face that just caught me that day. It happened to be, as soon as I got back to Healing Transition. So um, I don't know if it's a God wink or what it is, but there's something special about how it all went down.
Okay. And take us forward. I know it's been a number of years, but take us to the beginning of where the Oakwood 24 started and tell people who are not as familiar with that what exactly that event is and how you've been able to make it a bigger part of healing transitions too.
Yes, I'll try to be pretty quick, but I've hopped right into fitness and just loved running while I was at Healing Transitions. Um, a few of us started a run club on Tuesday nights there called Oak City Recovery Run Club for people in recovery, and people from outside would come join us and run in Dix Park. But anyways, through that run club, I met kind of a mentor of mine named Charlie Engel that was kind of an OG ultra runner, and started doing some training runs with him. And anyways, he invited me down to this 24-hour event in Clinton, North Carolina, called the El Zorro. And I went down there, not a very, I'd never done any real long distance running. I think I may have done one marathon and a half marathon before years ago. But anyways, he encouraged me to come down there, and it's just like, hey, just try to run as long as you can. It's a 24-hour event, take your time and do all that. And I ended up finishing that race and running 100 miles with him down there. And it was just really impactful for me, and kind of gave me this confidence to move forward. Even though it broke my body physically, there was something about it like, I want to do this again. And this was shortly after I'd finished the Healing Transitions program. I was there for right at a year, 12 months at Healing Transitions. So fast forward a little bit, I'm looking for a way to, how can I give back financially to Healing Transitions for housing me for an entire year, besides doing some service work. And I'd seen other people do some fundraising races. So um, I just threw together, and I lived right across from this cemetery called Oakwood Cemetery. It's in historic downtown Raleigh. And walked over there one day and asked the executive director, Robin, you know, do you think I could come do this crazy thing in here, run for 24 hours in the cemetery and try to raise some money for Healing Transitions? And luckily, she knew about Healing Transitions and known people that had been through that program before, and she agreed to it. So, anyways, that first year was a pretty small, just a handful of people running for 24 hours. But I would say 95% of it that year was F3 guys that were like, if you're crazy enough to go try to run for 24 hours and run 100 miles, we'll give you $1 per mile or $5 per mile or a quarter per mile and that kind of thing. And we put together this kind of spreadsheet, and I went out there and ran for 24 hours and ended up running 100 miles and had a ton of support throughout the whole thing. And we ended up raising, I think, like $36,000 or something. And it was just kind of this quick event. And then, we just got done with our 8th year, and raised about 240,000 this year. And we're over $1 million for the life of the event. But it's turned into this huge community event with a lot of Healing Transitions involvement, a lot of community. It's a race you can register for on Ultra Sign Up now and come out and do all this stuff. So,
Is it
Chris could
still
probably
right
talk
there at the
about it a little bit
cemetery?
more. What's that?
Is it still right there at the cemetery?
We had 7 years in the cemetery, and we kind of outgrew that space.
Huh.
So now we have several hundred people that come through and run, and there just wasn't a lot of great parking out there. So this past November was the first year we had it out at this farm in Eastern Wake County called Lakeside Retreats.
So over 24 hours, how does this work? Does everyone start at the same time, or do people start at different stages throughout the 24 hours?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most people don't run for 24 hours. It's just a 24-hour event. So we have some people that run for 24 hours. Some people do 12 hours, 6 hours. We have like a 5K option. And then the majority of people just come to support and run a few laps. Some people don't run. Some people just come out to listen to music and stand around the bonfire and do that kind of thing.
Wow.
So it's kind of an option for everyone. But yeah, the people that run for 24 hours start at 8 a.m. on Saturday, and it goes till 8 a.m. on Sunday morning.
So what is the route that you run? I assume it's a route that you run over and over again. What's the distance of the route for the people who run the entire 24 hours?
Yeah, so it's not like I do a lot of other 100-mile races that are point to point or big loops or things like that. This is just because we have so many people that want to come out and join us, and you want to make it kind of beginner level. It's always been somewhere between a 2 and a 4 mile loop. In the cemetery, it was one year we had a 2 mile loop, one year we had like a 3.5 mile loop. This past year it was a 2 mile, exactly 2 mile loop around this lake. It was really pretty. So
Nice. I asked because one of our guys in Plainfield here, Sparkler, is starting something very similar in the spring, coming up in a couple months. And I think early March, he's starting, I want to say it's an 8 hour run. So same thing, you can join at any point, but it's a 2 mile loop. So the people who start in the beginning will get, I think, it's maybe 30 miles or so. But it's like two miles, one loop every 30 minutes. So you could join at any point throughout the day or come in and encourage the people who are already doing it. It sounds like a similar concept. You're running the same route, but you push yourself to see how far you can go. Can you go for 6 hours? I think a lot of the men who will do it probably haven't run more than 2 hours before. So take me through from your standpoint as an ultra runner, how you get past that point of I've been running so long I've forgotten how long I'm running. Like you probably go through these waves. I know I've run a marathon, I've run a half marathon. You get through these points where you forget you're running, and the physical toll of it is no longer just trying to catch your breath. It's like just keeping your body moving, and you probably feel different pains as you go. But mentally, how do you keep yourself plugged into a run that's that long?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think it's a little bit different for everybody, but the basis that I always had for the race is it was kind of so similar to being in recovery where you only focus 24 hours at a time. Like your
Mhm.
whole goal is to stay sober one day at a time. And if you can do that and keep stacking them, it's really not that hard. And the same thing applies to the 24-hour race. People are like, how in the world can you go run for 24 hours? And I'm like, well, it's just like recovery. I stack it into just little sections at a time. Like that first El Zora race that I did, I had to break that down so small. It was in this small neighborhood, but I was breaking it down from mailbox to mailbox. I would run to one mailbox, walk to the next one, run to the next one towards the end of that race. So it's the same way with a 24-hour race. You break it down. Now it's a little bit different than me because I've done a lot of these, but it's just like recovery. It's like, you know, if I'm tired, I stop and take a little bit of break, or I walk for a little while. I reach out to friends for help. What's going on with my body? I don't feel well because I'm either dehydrated or I'm tired or I'm hungry or something like that. And it's just problem solving, um, kind of just like recovery. And that's what I relate it to. But these days it's just like I'm gonna run till lunchtime, then I'm gonna run till dark, and then I personally love running at night. It's my favorite time. Plus, there's not as many people around during Oakwood 24. Then I'm gonna run till sunrise, and then it's almost over. That type of thing. So
What
it's
do you
just
like about
breaking it
running
down
at
into
night?
manageable pieces.
What do you like about running at night?
I'm not sure what it is. I think it's always a little bit cooler at night. Um, for some reason, I enjoy running with a headlamp, and maybe it's just because you can't really see as much in front of you. A lot of the trail races I do, it's like, man, I didn't even realize I was running up that huge mountain because I can only see the 10 feet in front of me that the light is showing.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. There's a certain peaceful um, part to it as well. So hard to explain.
Yeah. Big Poppy, I want to go back to you for a second as I'm
I'd like to
hearing.
add a couple thoughts on this. If
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what John was talking about, and just that kind of role of community and so forth. And Fry Daddy can jump in on this as well. But uh, when I go out for Oakwood, I'm a combination rocking and taking photos. And as I look back, I'm looking at some of the photos that I took. And there's a young man who's younger black man from rural North Carolina with a ankle monitor on because he's on probation or maybe he's getting ready to start pre-trial or something like that. But he's running along and he's never done a 5K. And he's got an F3 guy, and you see these pictures here right now, who's running with him with his hand on his shoulder, encouraging him. And, like just kind of like in recovery, he wouldn't be, like we go further with support. We get through things with support. We discover more about ourselves with the support and encouragement of others. And this picture just reflected his F3 name is Desktop. And this guy is running with him, this other F3 member, and that's early in the day. Now, fast forward to middle of the night, and like John says, it's dark out. I'm rucking. I got my headlamp on, and I can hear voices behind me. And I can hear one guy, fishmonger, like pointing out hazards. And I can hear another guy, F3 member, telling him, man, you are running this entire lap. And what I discovered is that this guy Despop, who's never even run a 5K, is finishing a marathon. And he's doing that with the support of these F3 guys. And I start wondering, like, what the heck does this mean to this kid? This young kid who's never experienced anything like this. What will this do for him? What has he just learned about himself? And what has he just learned about others? Most folks that end up with us, haven't ended up with us because they've got a lot of super positive, supportive relationships in their lives, and what has it meant for him to have had this experience? John, I'd love to hear from you about your thoughts on that last lap, since you were a part of that.
Yeah, so it was just incredible. We had this F3 guy named Bullhorn, and he's kind of a loud older guy. And anyway, so him and Fishmonger came up and told me, they're like, Javon's just a few laps away from finishing off his marathon, but he's struggling, he's been cramping, he's been doing all this, and so we all agreed, like, man, we're gonna carry this guy around no matter what it takes. We're gonna go with him, and it was dark, and this is a trail loop that has a lot of roots and holes and those type of things. And anyway, so, Bullhorn's a loud guy that agrees to get out in front of him, and he starts calling out, root, hole, root, all this stuff really loud, which is kind of comical. But when you've been running for that long, it's almost like, a little chant that you get going or some kind of mantra, and it seems to really help. So we ran those last 2 or 3 laps with him, and everybody's, calling out different obstacles and taking turns and getting out in front of him. And it was really special to kind of carry him through that. And that was the second guy that day I had seen from Healing Transitions that had finished a marathon. They had never done anything like that before. And it was just really incredible to see. And it was really fun to run with him as well. And I see that all the time at Oakwood 24 over the years when I think back how many people have overcome certain things and found freedom just from running and doing something really hard and come out to Oakwood 24 and say, I've never run more than a 5K, and they come out there really slowly and spend the whole day out there encouraged by other people and end up running, 20 or 30 miles, things like that. So it was definitely a memorable moment for sure.
Hearing you talk about it makes me think back to how often, again, as adults, we have that opportunity to say, "Oh, I didn't realize what I was capable of." It feels like childhood. It feels like going back to those early coaches, those early teachers, those early mentors who really unlocked, excuse me, something within yourself that you didn't know was there. Like, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that." I don't think, I think we unfortunately grow out of experiences like that where we don't, as adults, have that privilege to get uncomfortable, to get into a space that we're not familiar with, and to realize that there are other people shoulder to shoulder with us who can push us there. I've seen it firsthand, just not being a runner when I started F3 to where I am now. Hearing men who were doing it from a peer led standpoint, not being a boss, not being a superior, but being a peer, saying, "You've got this, and I'm going to be there with you every step of the way." You'd mentioned something earlier, Poppy, about that sort of peer model at Healing Transitions as being so important. Do you see parallels there between how F3 is peer led and how Healing Transitions is peer led, and why they both have success because of that kind of
100%.
peer mentorship? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. So, one, like at our model, the peer component is important for initially helping people find hope, or maybe it's not even really hope, but it's just a little bit of belief that is enough to take action. Like, you need something to take that first step, and it usually comes from something that you see or hear from somebody who's walked that path. Um, what then happens for people once they're able to take a step or take some action is what I see happening in F3, which is discovering leadership, discovering the ability to use your experience to then benefit someone else, using your lessons, your pain, your struggles, right? Now, once considered to be a deficit, to be now an asset, you know. And so I see a lot of parallels with that. And also the opportunity for people to get on the same level, right? Like when you're out there working out, there's no person that's up here or person that's down there. And like I really loved, that talking about don't leave anyone behind, but don't leave them where you found them. Like in the recovery space, my friend Jason talks about meet people where they're at, but don't leave people where they're at. So like there's something like from the recovery world that aligns with that type of message with the F3 world. And then I think ultimately, like in traditional treatment, the service provider is delivering the service to the individual. And there's no reciprocity. Reciprocity is considered a boundary violation, right? And what I've experienced in this model is tremendous reciprocity, which has at times gone against the clinical training that I had when I went to school for my master's in social work and my addiction credentials and things like that, where I'm allowing and recognizing that there is no difference. There is no you and me, us and them. It is just us. And the reciprocity that I've gotten is being comforted by participants or being comforted by alumni when we've experienced deaths or experiencing loss. And at first that felt a little uncomfortable, like I'm supposed to be the staff member, right? But the recognition was like allowing that to be received is also a gift back to that person when they feel like somebody's cared for me and now I'm given an opportunity to show care and concern and compassion for someone else. So I see just this reciprocity in the peer model of recovery with the peer model of F3.
It sounds like you were articulating that earlier, Friday, in Oakwood 24, being part of your way of giving back and that reciprocity being fulfilling on your end. And, would you agree to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the things that are built into you in 12-step recovery are service and giving back. And, you can't keep it unless you give it away is kind of the motto. And it works the same way in F3. I just love the way there's anonymity because everybody gets a F3 name and they're on the same level. You're not John Collins, the attorney, you're just Elfrat or whatever your F3 name is, and it keeps everybody on that even ground. Um, but yeah, I just love the service impact of it. It's like just getting away from myself. A lot of people in recovery, including myself, suffer from self obsession and thinking about yourself all the time. So anything I can do during the day, especially F3 that I try to start my day with most days of the week is, getting away from myself, doing something hard with other men, and putting in that service of how can I help somebody that day? How can I share my experience? And a big part of that we try to focus on in some groups of Raleigh is COT is just it's not for announcements. It's not for what's going on. It's like, does somebody have an issue today? Are they going to share about it? And it usually takes that first guy to say, man, I'm struggling with my wife. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. Um, and it's just like recovery. When you put 12 or 15 men together that have been through all this stuff, there's so much experience to help pull another man through it. It just speaks volumes of community. We don't have to do this alone. When you look at all the experience of a group of men, somebody's been in that same position you were in. and found their way out of it, and they can help you. So that's just been a huge part of it for me.
Yeah, it's incredible to hear that from your perspective. It's really powerful. The last question that we always ask is if you could summarize, and you probably touched on much of this already, but Friday, I'll ask you to continue first. What is the biggest way or the top of mind way that F3 has impacted your life?
Um, yeah, that's a big question. I kind of owe it all to F3, at least a big part of it, because it's such a big part of my life. And it's affected, just every aspect of my life that you can imagine. So, um, the main thing is just gratitude, and um, I'm so lucky to have the group of men that I found in F3. And if you look back on, where it's hard to imagine where I would be without this type of thing. So it's just so lucky to have. Recently I have a company that I have to travel a lot for work, and it's just like recovery. When we go out of town, me and my guys are all in recovery on a crew. We find AA meetings at night to go to, and you walk in the room, and everybody has this common bond of recovery, and you feel like you're at home no matter where you are, and it works the same way in F3. We get up in the morning and go find a workout. It doesn't matter where I am or if I don't know any of these guys. When I walk in that circle and go to an F3 workout, I feel like I'm right back at home. I'm accepted. I know these guys, and I know what they're doing. So it's just been such a special gift to have this, and I just feel lucky that I found it, and I'm grateful for that. So.
Poppy, what about you? How would you answer that question? The biggest way that F3 has impacted your life?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer. The first thing that came to mind is that as a child and as an adolescent, I had a lot of alienating and isolating experiences, traumatic head injury, various things. And what I've found is like some healing through experiences as an adult. F3, some other spaces, St. Baldrick's was one of them, where I'm finding acceptance for things that were difficult for me as a kid. And that's like really been a helpful healing part of my own personal journey. And so that's like maybe one of the most important things that I've gotten. And then the second thing that just came to mind is, discovering that I'm capable of more than I thought I was.
Well, I appreciate that transparency. It rarely comes down to a simple answer, and I think that's a good thing. If it's a deeper, complex answer, I think that matters. We'll close here with a bit more of a local focus on Third F events that we have coming up in our community. So, Dog House, if you'll take us through a couple of things that we have going on, it's going to get really busy really quickly here. So, I'm sure this list will continue to grow very soon.
Yeah, this week we got a short list, but two very important notes to make. So in 2 weeks from today, no, yeah, 2 weeks from today, we have our blood drive, which Puddles is champion. So thank you for that. I think we're getting pretty full. So if you're listening in the region, if you're in Shorewood, Shanahan, Minooka, go sign up. The link is in info only, and I believe Third F. But our blood drive at Troy Shorewood Library is getting pretty full. And our second, probably our biggest day of the year as a region, will be February 7th. That's going to kick off our Winter Warrior competition. The rules are out on that. Please go sign up if you're listening. We also will have our convergence that day at Three Rivers, and we're going to wrap it all up with the Frosty 5 Mile in Shanahan. So, big day for the region.
Absolutely. All right, I'll close this with a quick COT. I've been trying to find a good way to tap into this conversation, and I think this quote from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus makes all the sense in the world today. He said that the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. I think we've talked about that element of F3, surrounding ourselves with men who make us want to be better and help us get there. But also through the conversations we've had these last couple of weeks with the men at Healing Transitions, I know that's what you're doing consistently, surrounding each other with men who bring out your best and help you become the man that you're meant to be. So give that inspiration to the rest of the people listening to turn to the men in your shield lock or in your local region at the AOs, at second F events, third F, but the men who call forth your best and who bring the best out of you, and to make sure that you're continuing to surround yourself with people who not only want the best for you, but push you to do the best for yourself. Right?
Aye.
All right. So we will close as we always do with a quick name-orama. I am Bill Skoronsky. I'm 47. I'm Puddles.
Puddles. John Christ, 41. Dog House.
Dog House.
Nick, 54, Big Papi.
Big Papi. Respect.
John Fry, 44, Fry Daddy.
Friday. All right, man. Thank you again for joining us. And for those of you in the Shamanwood region, Dog House and I will see you in the gloom very soon.